Basically, you're saying, here's everything we know about our customer. His phone number, his email address, his real name, his fake online name. No search warrant needed, just a curious cop. Yeah, so just to be clear, they're passing this in the name of border security, in the name of stopping terrorism and fentanyl. But they literally jammed this into the end, part 14 of a 14-part bill, and it's got nothing to do with borders or terrorism or drugs. And it has everything to do with spying on you. Guys, if you thought Justin Trudeau was bad, Mark Carney has gone further. His first major bill in Parliament, called C-2, will let police read your mail without a search warrant. Will let them go to any internet company where you have an account and get all your details, again, without a search warrant. There's even a provision in there that says you cannot pay for something with $10,000 in cash, even if you're a charity. I'll take you through it. You've got to sign my petition at stopc2.com. Here's the facts. I think the Mark Carney government will reintroduce Trudeau's Bill C-63. You'll know that as the Online Harms Act. That was the censorship law that was on its way to becoming law, at least. It was introduced in the House of Commons, but then Trudeau prorogued Parliament when he was challenged by Chrystia Freeland, and that automatically canceled all unpassed legislation. So we were saved by the bell. But the bill can simply be reintroduced. And as it happens, Stephen Guilbeault, the extremist who first started to draft this bill years ago, when he was Trudeau's heritage minister, well, he's back in cabinet as the heritage minister again. I mean, do you think he has had a change of heart about censorship, or do you think he's even worse? And add to that Mark Carney's extreme language during the campaign about censoring US-based social media platforms. He means Twitter and X mainly, but also others like Facebook. If people say mean things, not illegal things, but mean things, Carney wants to censor it. Take a look.
Large American online platforms have become seas of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate in all its forms. And they're being used by criminals to harm our children. My government will act.
Those things he listed there, they are not illegal or criminal. They're just offensive, I guess, and everyone has a different taste. So he wants to regulate political speech by basically giving a heckler's veto to anyone who claims their feelings are hurt. They get to silence someone. It's not based on any criminality. What he just said there was as extreme as anything that Justin Trudeau ever did. So stand by for that. I'm sure it'll come back, C-63, especially now that Elon Musk is flexing his free speech muscles. But there are other ways for the Liberals to silence Canadians and to spy on Canadians and to basically to do all of what they did to the truckers, to punish us, to do terrible things without even having a court order in their power. I'm talking about when the Liberals simply ordered banks to freeze and seize bank accounts of their political enemies hundreds of times. No trial, no arrest, no court order, no hearing, no procedure, no appeal, just some political aide made an enemies list, and next thing you know, you're at the grocery store or gas station and your bank card isn't working because your husband protested against the Liberals too much. That's not even the Online Harms Act. That's what the Liberals did without any special laws 3 years ago. Anyways, Mark Carney has started introducing bills. The very first bill of a new parliament is a symbolic one. That's the tradition. So that was Bill C-1. Bill C-2 is always the first substantive bill, the meaningful bill. And what is the first thing, the most important thing that Mark Carney wanted to get done? He just introduced C-2 this week. Well, it's a doozy. Here's a copy of the front of the bill. It's called An Act Respecting Certain Measures Relating to the Security of the Border Between Canada and the United States and Respecting Other Related Security Measures. Well, that sounds pretty good. I mean, it's embarrassing that Canada had to be shamed into border security by a foreign leader complaining about the drugs and terrorists just walking across the border, but that's where we are, I guess. But let me ask you a question and give me an answer from your gut. Do you think the Liberals would actually make a law that secures the borders and stops terrorists and drugs? Or do you think they would actually plant little surprises buried in the 140 pages of dense legalese in this bill that actually undermine our freedom and safety, not make us safer or freer? I mean, based on what you know about the moral character of our government, which of those two paths do you think they chose? It's a huge bill that tries to do so much, which is why it's perfect for burying little surprises in it. The super short summary of it itself is 5 pages long. Some of it makes sense on the face of it, just like C-63. They talked about stopping revenge pornography and child pornography. So you'd say, oh, that's a good idea, but then they hid the political censorship. This bill does the same thing. Let me read something that sounds on the face of it like not a bad idea. This is from the short summary at the beginning of the law. Part 1 amends the Customs Act to provide the Canada Border Services Agency with facilities free of charge for carrying out any purpose related to the administration or enforcement of that act and other acts of Parliament, and to provide officers of that agency with access at certain locations to goods destined for export. It also includes transitional provisions. So that's all about stopping the cars that are being stolen every day in big cities and then shipped off to Africa and the Middle East. Okay, so you're letting border services agencies into export terminals. Sounds like a good idea. It's sort of actually crazy that that isn't the case now. So searching for things at the border makes sense. Here's part 2. There's 14 parts. I'm not going to read all of them. Don't worry. I'm just showing you how they're hiding horrendous things in parts of a bill that are good. Part 2 amends the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act to create a new temporary accelerated scheduling pathway that allows the Minister of Health to add precursor chemicals to Schedule 5 of that act. It also makes related amendments to the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, police enforcement regulations, and precursor control regulations. You can probably guess what that means. It makes sense to me, basically stopping the ingredients for illegal drugs, not just the ingredients themselves. Okay, that sounds pretty good. But let me skip ahead to part 4, though. It amends the Canada Post Corporation Act to permit the demand, seizure, detention, or retention of anything in the course of post, only in accordance with an act of Parliament. It also amends that act to expand the Canada Post Corporation's authority to open mail in circumstances to include the authority to open letters. Okay, hang on, what again? This is a border bill. I was told this was the bill Donald Trump demanded. Does that just mean what I think it means? The government can just open up your mail without a search warrant now? Why, yes. Let's go to the full text of the bill. It's in a strange order. It's written sort of not in what I would think would be a logical order, but I want to read it to you. You can see for yourself. The first thing they say is you can only open someone's mail by following these rules. So at least they're saying not everyone can open all mail all the time. They say nothing in the course of post, that's a fancy way of saying something moving through Canada Post, is subject to demand, seizure, detention, or retention, except in accordance with an act of Parliament. Okay, thanks very little. So you're saying only Parliament can snoop in our mail. Then they say you have to tell Canada Post, if you're a cop, that you took mail from them. You got to let them know within 60 days that you just stole it. Let me read. If mail is demanded, seized, detained, or retained, or in accordance with an act of Parliament, other than the Act or the Canadian Security Intelligence Service Act, notice of the demand, seizure, detention, or retention must be given in writing to the corporation within 60 days after the demand, seizure, detention, or retention, unless the mail has, before the end of the period, been delivered to the addressee of the mail or returned to the corporation. So they're saying if you're a cop and you take something from the mail, you've got 60 days before you have to let Canada Post know you just took it out of the mail, but you don't even have to let them know if you put it back in the mail and it goes to its final destination. So what's that got to do with the border again? I'll just read a little bit more. They say you cannot get in trouble for opening someone's mail this way. You just can't. Subject to Section 41.1, His Majesty and Right of Canada, any servant or agent or mandatory of someone who's mandated, of the Majesty and the corporation are not liable to any person for any claim arising from a demand, seizure, detention, etc. So they're saying, hey guys, a lot of bad things are going to happen and you can't do anything about it. You cannot sue us for rifling through your mail. Then they changed the burden of proof. Now, of course, police can open mail right now with a court order. They can go into your house with a court order. It's called a search warrant. But they changed the burden of proof to having reasonable grounds to suspect. So they let an ordinary cop do it. If the cop says, well, you know, I'm a pretty reasonable guy and I think there's something fishy going on. So no search warrant, no judge, no two sides of the story in court. Just, are you reasonably worried? Let me read that for you. The corporation may open any mail if it has reasonable grounds to suspect. And then it cuts that off because that was just the wording that was changed. You can see it now does not require a search warrant, only reasonable suspicion. Just Chrystia Freeland maybe phoning up some cop to seize the mail of some enemy, the way she seized the bank accounts of the truckers. They learned nothing from that. Actually, they did learn, they learned they can get away with it. And who is Mark Carney's new right-hand man in all this? His new principal secretary, but David Lametti, the crooked former justice minister who approved of the illegal search and seizures of the truckers. So whose mail will be opened? Again, what's it got to do with borders? A terrorist mail? A drug dealer's mail? But like I say, that can be done right now with a search warrant. How about my mail? How about the mail of conservative opposition MPs? How about donors to the Conservative Party? Can their mail be opened? How about mail that's legally privileged? So when a lawyer writes something confidential to a client about a court case, who's in charge of this? Why, the same crooks who were in charge of the greatest civil liberties bonfire in Canadian history during the pandemic. They want to search and seize your mail now because they're suspicious of you. They have reasonable grounds to suspect you're up to something. And of course, they are suspicious of you because you are suspicious of them. Now, if you would like them, if you would just like them, then they would like you too. It's basically an enemies list they have. It's got nothing to do with border security. Where was the word border in any of that? And everything to do with going after their enemies. But then look at this. Again, this is from the summary of the law near the front again. Part 11 amends the Proceeds of Crime, Money Laundering, and Terrorist Financing Act to prohibit certain entities from accepting cash deposits from third parties and certain persons or entities from accepting cash payments, donations, or deposits of $10,000 or more. It also makes a related amendment to the Proceeds of Crime and Terrorism Financing Administrative Monetary Penalties Regulations. That's a mouthful, but let me translate. You can't use cash anymore if it's more than 10 grand, even if it's totally legitimate. Here, let's go to the text. Let's read it for yourself. Look at the bill yourself. Section 136. The act is amended by adding the following after section 77.4. Offense: cash payments, donations, or deposits of $10,000 or more. Every person or entity, that could mean a company, or could mean a church, that is engaged in a business, a profession, or the solicitation of charitable financial donations from the public commits an offense if the person or entity accepts a cash payment, donation, or deposit of $10,000 or more in a single transaction or in a prescribed series of related transactions that total $10,000 or more. Now, I've never had $10,000 cash in my pocket, but I could imagine moments when that could happen to very ordinary people. I mean, not everyone uses credit cards, whether it's people playing bingo, for example, or a laundromat that gets paid in bills and coins, or restaurants, or a bar. I'm just picking examples. You think of your own. There's a car wash I go to, pays cash. I mean, a church that passes a donation plate. There are endless, completely legitimate reasons to have $10,000 on you. And by the way, those are 10,000 Canadian mini dollars. It doesn't go as far as it used to go. It's not illegal to have $10,000, but now it will be, even if it's totally legit. You can't pay for things like that. Sorry, this is a border control law? Who says it's wrong to use cash? And on what basis do they regulate you? They won't regulate the border, but they're coming for you if you use $10,000 in cash. If you're a drug dealer, I get it. If you're a terrorist, I get it. But that's not what the proposed law says, is it? It says every person, and it even lists businesses, professions, charities. How on earth is that necessary? How on earth is that related to the supposed purpose of this bill? Donald Trump didn't say, hey, crack down on Christian churches and their donation plates. Donald Trump said, fix your border. And Mark Carney said, oh, okay, fix your border. I hear open people's mail and take their money if they use cash. Look, it's obvious what this is. This is a war on cash. It's a way to scare people to move off cash and use only credit cards and other online traceable forms of money so the government can look at everything you do, everyone you pay, every place you go. If you can see what people pay for, you can see where they go and who they deal with, what everyone does with their money. Nothing to do with immigration or border security or drugs. Again, you can already seize the proceeds of crime right now. This is to get people off cash and eventually, I predict, onto some sort of traceable government central bank digital currency, which is smart money, which means they can turn it off if you're spending it in a way they don't like. You know they want to do that, especially a central banker like Mark Carney. You know he wants to get central bank digital currency going. And look at this from the summary of the bill. Let's go to Part 14. Part 14 amends various acts to modernize certain provisions respecting the timely gathering and production of data and information during an investigation. It, among other things, amends the criminal code to, among other things, facilitate access to basic information that will assist the investigation of federal offenses through an information demand or a judicial production order to persons who provide services to the public. Clarify the response time for production orders and the ability of peace officers and public officers to receive and act on certain information that is voluntarily provided to them and on certain information that is publicly available. And specify certain circumstances in which peace officers and public officers may obtain evidence, including subscriber information, in exigent circumstances. I'll just read a little more. Provide and clarify authorities by which computer data may be examined. Okay, sorry, what's this got to do with the border again? You know, Canada's leading internet privacy expert, Professor Michael Geist of the University of Ottawa, he wrote about this actually in the Globe and Mail just today. And he thinks it's an atrocious, it's like a poison pill. He says, alarming privacy threats are buried in the Liberal border bill. Let me read a bit. A border security bill tabled by the Liberal government this week will have wide reach beyond the 49th parallel. Buried in the massive bill are provisions to allow law enforcement to access information about internet subscribers without a warrant. Hey, what websites are you going to? Show the government. No search warrant necessary, just as a cop who wants to know. The Strong Borders Act seeks to circumvent these decisions by creating a new information demand power for law enforcement that does not require court oversight. The new power targets information about a subscriber, such as whether they use a particular internet service and if the provider has data about their usage. The provider may also be required to disclose where and when the service was used, as well as information about any other services the subscriber used to communicate. This is akin to law enforcement approaching a bank to demand if a particular person is a client and whether there is information about their account transactions and which branches were used by stopping short of asking for the actual account information. And Geist continues, he says, there are obvious privacy implications here that are certain to result in a legal challenge should the bill pass in its current form. Well, why should that stop the Liberals? I mean, the Emergencies Act was illegal and unconstitutional. They did it anyways. Now, again, if this was targeting after bad guys and a court looked at the evidence and said, yeah, oh, you got Osama bin Laden's, successor on the run, you bet, check out what he's doing on the internet. No one would disagree. Well, actually, this government probably would come to his defense. But This isn't about going after the bad guys. It's about going after everyone. And any cop can do it. No court oversight. I bet those Toronto cops, you know, those ones who do the podcast saying how the Hamas attack on Israel was actually had a silver lining. I bet they're going to use this power a lot. Here's the official wording from the bill itself about what a cop can get. After a phone call from, say, Chrystia Freeland, I mean, no need for a judge. Here, let's read. Subscriber information means in relation to any client of a person who provides services to the public or any subscriber to the services of such a person. A, information that the subscriber or client provided to the person in order to receive the services, including their name, pseudonym, address, telephone number, and email address. Identifiers assigned to the subscriber or client by the person, including account numbers, and information relating to the services provided to the subscriber client, including the types of services provided, the period during which the services were provided, and information that identifies the devices, equipment, or things used by the subscriber or client in relation to the services used. And then there's a French version on the other side. But here's the first part of what a cop can get. So I just listed what they said is the information. A peace officer or public officer may make a demand in Form 5.0011 to a person who provides services to the public, requiring the person to provide in the form, manner, and time specified in the demand the following info. A, whether the person provides or has provided services to any subscriber or client, or to the account identified, specified in the form. It goes on. It basically repeats what I just said. Basically, you're saying, here's everything we know about our customer. His phone number, his email address, his real name, his fake online name. No search warrant needed, just a curious cop. Yeah, so just to be clear, they're passing this in the name of border security, in the name of stopping terrorism and fentanyl. But they literally jammed this into the end, part 14 of a 14-part bill, and it's got nothing to do with borders or terrorism or drugs. And it has everything to do with spying on you. And yeah, I mean you. They spied on millions of Canadians during COVID, and they weaponized that during the trucker convoy. They seized bank accounts. This is literally Mark Carney's first bill. What do you think? It's how I described, eh? They literally make it a crime to accept payments of $10,000 in cash, even if you're in a charity. They let cops sort through your mail, open up your letters and read them without a search warrant. And they let any cop go to any internet company and force that company to give them all your personal details. This is un-Canadian. No wonder Mark Carney loves it. By the way, that anti-cash move, it's designed to get us using digital currency that they can control. We got to stop this. Go to stopc2.com.